And welcome back to the Hotline. We're talking the Friday form guide. Who was fastest? Who's looking good for pole? Who's looking good for the race? Who is fastest in Sector 1? Etc, etc. Big data incoming. Also, the best of Lance Stroll, the worst of Lance Stroll. So welcome to the Friday form guide, where we discuss Friday practice, which gives us the interesting and arguably the best insight into both qualifying and or the race. But instead, let's have a quick look before we get to that. Who was fastest in FP1? Or surprisingly, Lance Stroll was third. What was not surprising was the two McLarens were fastest, Lando Norris and Piastri, meaning there's going to be too much pressure on Lando Norris, and surely he's not going to start pole, at least according to some at the moment. So this is a visual guide, I think, thanks from the race, at the gaps. So we obviously got Norris, Piastri, Stroll and Alonso very, very close to each other, the visual gaps. And next up we got Albon, Verstappen, who, yeah, we'll get into that, he did a whoopsie, Russell, Sainz and Bortoletto. And then the rest, and if you look at it, Leclerc and Hamilton really, really far back. A bit of help. Sadly, Kimi Antonelli ended up joining the scenery. And a bit later, so did his world champion compatriot Max Verstappen. So these were the average of the long runs in FP1. And I want to say, it doesn't look too bad for Ferrari. Hamilton, 116.170 on the soft. Then we got Hadjar, Bortoletto and Tsunoda. All these obviously on those soft tyres. In the medium, Norris looked amazing. Now, as we know, McLaren very good on the tyres, very good at looking after those tyres. But also, I mean, Stroll, Alonso, this is the FP1 data, half a second down. Why are they so fast? Well, because when you look at it, they have improved the car. And this is quite a tight track. It does have straights, obviously. It has banking. But like Hungary, in a way, they did well there as well, didn't they? And they're doing very well here. So, Stroll and Alonso looking good. Could Alonso get pole position? I don't think so. He was interviewed even after FP2 and he was like, yeah, I don't really think so. A top three? Absolutely. Could he get a podium? Potentially he can, because it seems that both Mercedes, Red Bull and Ferrari are very much faltering here this weekend. When you look, that's obviously the lap delta. Kimi Antonelli way down because, well, he didn't really finish the session at all, did he? This is the long run data for Norris, Piastri, Albon, Verstappen and Russell. Makes sense of it what you will. But let's then get into the track dominance. So, as you can see, Norris, he is the fastest. He's the most dominant across there. But interestingly, down obviously the straight here, halfway down in the acceleration point is Lance Stroll, which I thought was interesting. And again, Stroll in turn number 7. And then it's kind of like a mixture between obviously Piastri and Norris. We'll have a look at FP2. So when you look at the long runs again, yes, on the softs, Hamilton was, looking good, but ultimately Lando Norris looks the best, really. The Alpine seems to be really, really struggling on the race runs. Now, the DRS delta, with and without DRS, well, the fastest, interestingly, is, drumroll, the Sauber. They look really good. Followed by the Mercedes, the slowest in relation to the DRS, at 3.24, look to be both V-Carb and Haas. McLaren kind of in the middle with 3.25 and Ferrari with 3.24. Top speed without the DRS, though, is, again, the Sauber and the Haas, which is not too bad. Yet their DRS seems to be slightly less efficient. But we're talking a few kilometres per hour. There doesn't seem to be as big a differential, a bigger difference as the others. Once again, we've already spoken about the long run data. Dutch Grand Prix FP1 lap sections. So, partial throttle, braking, lifting, and full throttle. Obviously, Lando Norris there. 60.4, lifting 3.3. Now, what if you compare that to Piastri in terms of lifting throughout the whole lap? That's quite interesting. It's fairly significant 3.3 and 7.7. It doesn't necessarily mean someone's a lot slower. It may be the way they drive. And we look at partial throttle as well. There we go, 19.7 and 19, obviously very, very close to each other. Full throttle, 60.4, 57.8, but that's probably got to do with something to do with the lifting, which I think is really, really interesting. Now, when you look at the top speeds, we've seen it in the DRS, but it is Hulkenberg in the Sauber. So, yeah, I expect nothing more. Throttle usage, 61.7 over average with Aston Martin. McLaren somewhere in the middle there, for FP1. It kind of contravenes the other data we saw, but anyway, there I go. Now, this was interesting in FP1. Max Verstappen stuck in the gravel right at the end doing the practice start. It's kind of like he forgot to brake, or what he's doing is one of his legendary dive bomb practices. Only time will tell, but yeah, a big mistake. Everyone seemed to be making the mistake, especially Alex Albon, Kimi Antonelli were making mistakes. And let's be fair, Verstappen, yeah, Hamilton was doing 360s like it was going out of fashion. Luckily, he didn't hit the wall. And then this was Hamilton's. Look, as you can see here, he's coming over the crest, and it's just at this point here in FP1. Don't know what it is. The car goes light, and he loses it, and yeah, that's like a 360 spin. Let's just quickly see it again. Just as he comes, it's literally as he's coming over this crest here. There we go. As he's coming over the crest, and yeah, he spins it. Just loses it. That's where Lance Stroll ended up in the wall. We'll have a look at that in a bit. And FP2. So arguably the most important practice session. However, but with a capital B, it looked like it was going to rain. So they all lined up at the beginning. They're kind of like, it seemingly they did their initial soft tyre runs right at the beginning because it looked like rain 12 to 14 minutes in. Having said that, in our preview, we said this is near the sea. The weather is really unpredictable. So in spite of the fact they predicted rain, the rain, alas, did not come. But if you want a full rundown of P2, which I always think is the most telling session, because it takes place about the same time as the race normally and the same time as qualifying. So it was Lando Norris, but only just covered by 1/10, with Lando Norris, Fernando Alonso splitting the McLarens, and Oscar Piastri just shy of 1/10. Then it was George Russell in fourth, nearly 4/10 down. Over half a second was Max Verstappen. Now, interesting note for Lewis Hamilton, he was faster than Charles Leclerc. But the significant thing is, he was faster than Charles Leclerc in spite of having 4 flat spotted soft tyres, because he did another 360, didn't he? It was looking on a really decent first sector, and then yeah, whoops a daisy for Lewis Hamilton. So I think he would have been even faster. I think he's going to take some solace into that. But 7th, Yuki Tsunoda, a few tenths shy, 3/10 ish shy of Max Verstappen. If he can nail that down to about a tenth, or less than, or even less than 2/10, I think that would be doing really well for Yuki. So Franco Colapinto, well, apparently his pep talk with Flavio Briatore, if these rumours are to be believed, worked exceedingly well, because he is now up there in, drumroll, top 10, 9th. Hulkenberg in 10th. Sauber not looking too bad. Oliver Behrman in 11th. Kimi Antonelli, again, I mean, we're looking at what, George Russell, nearly a second slower than George Russell. He's not started after the summer break very well, has he? But time will tell. You're only as good as your last race, and if he does good in this race, I guess we're all going to forget. Next up, Gabriele Bortoletto in 13th, 14th Liam Lawson, 15th Esteban Ocon, 16th Carlos Sainz, 17th Alexander Albon. They're both about 1.8 seconds off the pace. The concern is when they're both like that and they're both fairly close to each other, is that then the maximum they can do in that Williams? If that's the case, they're going to struggle to get points. Lance Stroll, who should be getting points, only did 7 laps because he decided to join the landscape of the track into the wall. Pierre Gasly last, and Isaac Hadjar didn't do a lap. His car pretty much stopped out on track. So when we look at the delta, this is what it looks like as a bar chart. Norris fastest, Alonso second fastest, Piastri third fastest, really close, all the way to 2.2 seconds down when you got to look for Gasly. Hamilton once again, really impressive. Yes, he is nearly 9/10 down, best part of a second, but he did that on flat spotted soft tyres. Don't forget that. Leclerc best part of a second down, and Colapinto just about in the top 10, followed by Hulkenberg. So track dominance. This time the green of Stroll has been swapped by the green of Fernando Alonso, and again very similar here. Look, Alonso, there's a lot more green there because it was a lot closer this time round. On the banking there initially, and it's only until the end of the straight. Now I wonder whether that's a DRS thing or not. I don't know. McLaren doing really well in like those medium speed corners here, but I mean, when you come round to turn 3, really good, and then you got turn 4 and 5. These are pretty much flat. So the Aston Martin's looking good. Again, McLaren in turn 6 and 7, and again in 8 and 9. Those medium speed 11 and 12, and then 13. Those medium speed corners. But don't rule out the Aston Martin. The only thing is how fast are those McLarens on race pace in respect of looking after their tyres. That's ultimately, I think, is going to be where the race can be won and lost, because you can pass here. They're all going to tell you it's really, really hard. It's hard everywhere. They all say, oh, it's so hard passing. Oh, it's so hard passing. You can pass here if you really want to. In spite of what Sky are going to say and the other drivers, of course it's hard. It's hard to pass everywhere. But you can't. Seemingly they all seem to go to a track. Oh, it's so hard to pass. Oh, it's so hard to pass. Yeah, I get it. Okay, fair enough. Move on. So these are the long. They're the long runs. Hopefully we get a slightly. There you go. DRS Delta again, really, really similar. I mean, Haas not looking too bad on 329, but this time it's Red Bull on 331. That may well be that everyone has started to turn their engines up. Because Ferrari 327 as well. Not amazingly bad when we look at the top speeds in a bit. Hopefully that'll shed some light. They are the long runs. But yeah, here we go. The lap sections. The FP2 lap sections. So, percentage of throttle. This is of both drivers. So, braking is Norris, again, better than Piastri. Lifting, again, this time, interestingly, it's Norris lifting 1.4% more than Piastri, which I think is quite interesting. But then partial throttle, again, Norris 17.1%. Piastri quite close. This is now, it's really close. Piastri seeming has closed the gap. Full throttle, Lando pretty much just 1% on that. In terms of that, Hamilton 58.1% in terms of full throttle. Partial throttle 22.4% and 18% there. In terms of braking, we know how good normally Hamilton is on those brakes. Lifting though, Hamilton 1.5%. That's interesting, isn't it? And this would have been, I think, if they're taking, the average, or I'm not sure if it's the average or percentage of time, their best laps. I still think Hamilton, both Ferraris should get into Q3. Hamilton really needs to get into Q3, I think, for his own sanity there. But it still very much looks like a McLaren Fest domination, doesn't it? When you look at the top speeds, again, it's Verstappen. These are all with the DRS open. The slowest is Piastri on 322, which is interesting. Norris on 324 goes all the way to 331. So Verstappen has 9 kilometers per hour over Piastri, which, let's be fair, if he's right behind him, it's fairly significant. If a Formula 1 car hits you, albeit at 9 kilometers per hour, no, it's not going to injure you, but you most certainly know about it. These are, again, some of the long runs, but moving on. Long ones. I think we've gone into all those sections of throttle usages there. So this is Lance Stroll. We all want to see him crash, don't we? Yes, because it's Lance Stroll. Let's see Lance Stroll running out of talent. Anyone can do this. Danny Ricciardo did this last year, but albeit he was assisted by a car that was basically crashed. But this is, there we go. Oh, all by himself. Okay, what actually happened then? What actually happened to our lover Lance? Well, it's all right there, and then when you look at the steering wheel here, you can just about see it. It's almost like, he just forgets to turn. He's like, oh no, turns too late, and he's essentially, it appears, unless there's something broken on the car, it does appear it's just going too fast, and it completely understeers into the corner. Luckily, he's all right. Interestingly, he still kept his hand on the steering wheel, which I thought was brave. Bearing in mind, you're looking at, what happened to Danny Ricciardo. Also, Alex Albon just about made it into the barrier. It looks a lot worse than it is. This must have been like about, 5 miles per hour in the end. He nudged, he kissed, pecked the barrier, petted it, whatever you want to call it, and his nose fell off. What brought out the red flag, though, is he tried to go in reverse, and then he ended up reversing into the gravel and then getting stuck. This was George Russell, and I think it was Piastri, but the McLaren driver, nearly hitting each other. There was a massive confusion. I think where Piastri was started moving the steering wheel, not really looking in his mirrors, and almost coming together with George Russell. Now, there's probably not going to be a penalty. It's just going to be a fine like normal. However, you do have to start to wonder. Say, for example, he damaged Russell so Russell couldn't go out anymore. Surely then, at that point, you've got to start thinking, that's going to be a penalty, in my opinion. Interesting fact by the Holiness on Twitter. The last time Alonso won a race, he finished P2 in FP2 and was sandwiched between 2 cars from another team. Both McLarens today. And today Alonso finished in P2 sandwiched between the 2 McLarens, and his last win was the Spanish Grand Prix. Just saying. Last but not least, Matt Bishop, former McLaren marketing guru and F1 Racing, if you remember that magazine, awesome as it was, F1 Racing editor, reminded today is James Hunt, would have been 78 years, was born 78 years ago. This is him laying out a Marshall. Yeah, I mean, the guy just sack of potatoes, and then he's like, I'm so sorry, whoops-a-daisy, I'm so sorry. It shows you the adrenaline, doesn't it? He's just full of adrenaline, donk. And it just completely smacks him. But there we go. Anyway, I digress. If you made it to the end, and if you're not, please give us a subscribe. This has been the Friday Form Guide. Comment below, let us know if you like this and you like this in the future on the Fridays. Until then, we will speak to you soon. Thanks for watching, but above all else, stay safe.